Hey, what's up? This is Chosen. Going to be joined by my friend and teammate VeiledShot, who is also a content creator for Diablo Immortal. And in this one, we're going to take a look at the previous version of the tier list. We're going to talk about the numbers that go into the tier list, talk about some adjustments that we're going to make as we head into Season 4 and the new Battle Pass. So let's get into it. Alrighty, how we doing today, VeiledShot?
Doing pretty well. Ship farming as always.
There you go. Yeah, staying in the ship. That's what I like to hear. So, I've kind of been thinking in my head we should keep this up to date on the website over at diablopro.gg. Let's keep this up to date about once a month. It seems like about every battle pass is a good opportunity to kind of remember to revisit this, look at the different weights and distribution, how the meta is evolving, and make sure that we're staying as up to date and current as possible, because we got things like new legendary items. We've had 72 legendary items be released, and we constantly learn more, and the game changes and all that. So I want to revisit this with you. Is there anything that stands out to you on the old tier list? You can see Necro grading out as number 1, Crusader, Demon Hunter, Wizard, Monk, Barbarian. By the way, sorry, let me finish this. The old version of the tier list, our current version, is right here on the right side of the screen. And then on the numbers up top here, we're going to be updating to the current version, and then we will get that updated on the website as well, probably by the time you see this video. So, sorry. Now I'll let you talk, Veiled. Do you agree with that 1 through 6 on the old version?
Yeah, honestly, I would say most of the content in the game is like PvE content, right? Like, yes, PvP is a major portion of the game. But in reality, like when we're talking about Diablo, what are we doing? We're farming legendary items. We're doing dungeons. We may jump into PvP every once in a while, but to progress our characters, we're doing PvE. And honestly, Crusader and Necro are just kings of that game mode. So I think Crusader definitely is just an absolute menace in PvE. So it should be absolutely 1 or 2. And then Necro actually does an insane amounts of damage with the summons. And that's one of the best ways to get through your dungeon. So definitely 1 and 2 for the Necro. I could definitely see that overall in the whole game. So,
and we should mention that you've got the Necro background there, or is that actually like the Skeleton King? But anyway, a brand new first time necromancer over here for VeiledShot.
That's right. That's right. This is mainly because everyone wanted to see me suffer. I freaking love the wizard's teleport and the ability to move around, and I was not excited to play Necro purely for the fact that it's super slow in terms of like just moving around. But definitely excited to just play a solid class. I can never go wrong with just playing the perceived number 1 class in the game, right? So,
okay. And then between Crusader and Wizard, which one did you like more? Like if you had to pick one as your main.
who I would say that Crusader definitely felt more impactful generally. Like I'm sure you've noticed as someone who swapped to Satyr, I ran so many dungeons when Hell 4 came around because of the 6-piece set items. And there were many times where I didn't have a Satyr with me. And it's a complete game-changing aspect. Like your times maybe cut minimum of like 30% off of your boss fights, generally speaking. And so super, super important to have a Satyr. On the other hand, Wizard was the most absurd class in PvP. When I was running around as this class, not only did I feel like I was doing a ton of damage in PvE, and not just like as a group, like being a huge asset to my group, but just as a solo player. And then in PvP, it was just the most absurd thing, just hitting from 2 screens away, never being able to be caught, ceasing entire teams. It was a little absurd, if I'm being honest. The Wizard is definitely a little overtuned in general for PvP, in my opinion.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. I said, which one would you pick as your main if you had to pick one?
Uh,
I'm holding your feet to the
Wizard.
fire here, Veiled.
Probably Wizard, I would say overall. I just think they're more fun. They're more fun. You can't go wrong with that, right?
All right, well then stay tuned for next month's tier list update, and we'll see if Veiled will pick the Necromancer over the Wizard for a main. So we'll have to.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well then let's look through the numbers here. We've got the sheet. Is there anything? I guess we'll just go through one at a time. Solo play. Do all the rankings look good to you, or would you want to change anything there for just kind of playing solo and clearing stuff in general?
I think maybe bump up the Wizard a little bit more. I don't think that they're actually any type of particularly weak. They have a lot of damage, so maybe like a 7 at the lowest. I do think that they might be potentially worse than Barb and Satyr, so 7's probably a good way to put them.
Okay, cool. I can get on board with that. And then what about synergy? So this is going to be, obviously, like you've got your Necro for PvP, your Satyr for PvE. Are any of these numbers shaken out? It looks like they all can kind of do well. Like there isn't really like a trash can you don't want in your group.
No, yeah, and I would say that Monk could probably even go up to a 9. I've been really highly valuing one specific skill, and that's Shield of Zen. Gives you CC immunity, and you could drop it on one of your other party members, which is a hugely impactful move. So maybe even a 9 for Monk here.
Okay, and Demon Hunter, we've always kind of had them low on synergy and support. Now, they do bring damage, but they don't really synergize. They're not doing something special to enable other people, which is why we've always kind of had that lower. Do you think we should leave those at a 5?
Yeah, and honestly, maybe even for the Wizard, dropping them down a little bit. If we're talking about just meshing well with other teammates, they're kind of just like a catch-all. Like they're just good as a class. They're not like especially good with other classes, if that makes sense. So maybe just a drop on the synergy aspect, just because they're just an overall good class.
Okay, but leave Demon Hunter at 5?
Yeah, probably. They're the same boat as Wizard.
Okay, cool. And then leveling. So it kind of encompasses everything. Leveling from 1 to 60 for a new player, leveling Paragon, grinding, the lazy XP, running in circles, all that type of stuff. Again, most of them are pretty good. We had Wizard at the lowest at 6. You're probably going to say we should bump that up to a 7 or 8 if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think that Wizard, there's a couple of moves that give you movement speed. And so they actually could be one of the fastest members of your team by consistently hitting. So maybe even an 8, because they could really just surpass like Barb or Satyr in terms of movement speed if you're playing it well. So, and that's really all you care about when we're talking about open world farming or farming in general or leveling.
Okay. And that leaves Monk behind everybody else at 7. Is that fair?
Yeah. The thing is, they have the one teleporting basic, which is nice, but you have to have enemies in range, and then they have the dashes. So probably a little bit worse than the Wizard, but they're still solid. So maybe a 7's fine, in my opinion.
Cool. And then we get to PvP, and this one is weighted heavily. We can talk about the weights at the end, but this is going to be the most impactful weight here on PvP. So, you know what? I would say, I mean, do we take Barb to a 4? Like, are they, and we almost should take a Satyr to a 9, shouldn't we?
Yeah, so here's what I think. I think Necro and Wizard are an absolute 10. Wizard might even be an 11, and Necro might even be an 11. And then, as you're saying, Barb, I think 5 is okay. They can be impactful in the right team comp. You know, as you have that like insane front line, they can really do some damage. The same thing applies to Satyr, in my opinion. Not that they're bad, but they do need some sort of synergy. Like I was talking to people about the party invite bug. When that was in the game, Satyrs were literally the worst class in PvP. Because if you can't party with people, you can't use your skills. And so if you're kind of not coordinated, they could really drop down. So I think 8 is probably fine for the Satyr. I would say that the Demon Hunter at least needs to be bumped up to a 7 with the new legendary items. The Vengeance Sphere and the knockback multi-shot give you a lot of tools to kind of prevent dashes on top of you and just overall insane CC moves. And then the Monk, I would bump up to a 9. That class is just absurd with all the CC moves that they have recently in their mobility. Such hard characters to lock down and even at all like avoid because of their CC. So that's my opinion for the overall list.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with any of that. I'd say like a Satyr, almost a 9, just because of the immunity. Like the Conjuration of Light is just so ridiculous. If you can manage your cooldowns properly, run in a Conjuration of Light and just be a menace. But yeah, their horse can get broken and stuff like that. So there are some cases against them.
I honestly agree with you because not only are they like super impactful, and if they have the the immunity and your team is nearby, you can get a lot of value from it. They're also just the tankiest characters in the whole game because of their block chance and their ability to kind of use armor more effectively. If you exclude the barbarian's invulnerability, but they're pretty good. So I wouldn't mind bringing them up to a 9. I think they're actually quite solid.
Cool. Okay, and then beginner friendly. You know, I don't really see anything jumping out to me as super awful. Is the wizard, because the wizard is supposed to be a little bit more based on skill shots and landing teleports and stuff like that, but
Yeah, I would say that if we're talking about like just the most difficult class, wizard probably is the most difficult class, just because you do have to rely on positioning. But they're probably not that difficult. Like I would put them probably on par with the monk. It's like a 6.
okay, and nothing needs to be adjusted besides that. I had
No,
Satyr. We had Satyr lower at 7 because they have really long cooldowns and you have to kind of manage engagements and stuff like that. But
yeah, if we're talking about like just like beginner friendly, we're not talking about like optimizing, horse cooldown timing and all that stuff. I think 7 is fine. Like obviously when you get to the later game, you're going to want to make sure you banner at the right time, you use your horse at the right time, and so um, that's when it starts to get a little bit more difficult. But we're talking about just overall picking up the class, not that difficult.
cool. And then for dungeons, um, is there anything that stands out between Necro, Wizard, and Monk? They're all at a 6.
I think Necro and Wizards are probably rated too low. Obviously, we have our fearless leader DM. I ran a lot of dungeons with him, and we were comparing damage numbers when I was playing the wizard. And the necro seems, if you set up your summons build and you have that 6-piece shepherd set, they can do some absurd single target damage on the bosses. So I would even bump them up to an 8, and then wizard probably at a 7 or maybe an 8. But necros definitely, I think, are a little, underrated here because of how powerful the summons can be.
Okay, everything else looks good then.
Yep, I
Yep.
would say so.
Okay. Now, challenge rifts. I'm not a super expert on the challenge rifts. I haven't done like the 4-person pushing and stuff like that. I've mostly focused on the vault and PvE content, getting builds developed, leveling. So it's hard to quantify this because on the solo boards you're just going against yourselves. But I guess it would come down to for like duos and trios and 4-mans who you would want in your team.
If I was being honest, I'd probably just want like 10 wizard or 3 wizards and 1 satyr.
You're talking about your
Especially,
beam build.
yeah, well, specifically with the ability to go ahead and stack the laser beams on the ice crystal, but also with the new legendary item, wizards can literally just chain freeze everyone in the group. And then what you could do is you can modify your build halfway through to turn into more of a boss killing build. And then you have your banner from the satyr, and you could even like work around the immunity field. I really like satyrs and wizards. Necros are also an excellent class to have because of their summons. Their ability to create terrain is really nice. But when it comes down to it, what you're looking for is just high CC and then the ability to kill the boss. And I think that wizards offer that oftentimes. And then satyrs are always good because of the banner.
So I bumped up Satyr a little bit. Does like Barb or Monk or DH need to come down? We had DH at 9, but they don't really have any CC. They might not be good for like challenge rift pushing.
No, they really only offer damage. And when we're talking about pushing as 4, you really need to just chain CC. So maybe they could drop down a bit. And I actually really dislike Monk in challenge rifts. There are some combos you can do to avoid damage, but I don't think they offer enough compared to some of these other classes. Barbs can have that whirlwind where they can gather up everyone for you, which can be okay. But then when you get to the boss fight, you really do lack a little bit from some other classes. So, I think the other classes are relatively decently placed at this point.
Yeah.
5 for the monk, 6 for the barb, and then you have DH as a 4, maybe a little bit higher for the DH because they do offer a good amount of damage, maybe like a 6. And then I'd say that's probably fine.
Okay. And then support. Yeah, I mean, I guess should Wizard be a little bit higher? 7 or
They don't really offer too much support. The only support that they really have is like ice armor as a team. You don't really run that, so they could even be a little bit lower, maybe like a 4.
yeah, I was thinking just because of like black hole, like they group things up and then you blast it.
Yeah, that's yeah. If we want to count like CC moves and setting up your team, they can definitely have that, and they have the ranged freeze, which is really nice as well. So if that's the consideration, I would say that they're fine where they are. Monk maybe bumped up to a 9. I think they offer a lot of support for their squad. Generally for PvP and in PvE, you can run some specific builds to give you a lot of support for your team. So I actually think that they probably are just a step down from Necro and Satyr.
Okay. DH doesn't really do a whole lot of support. And then Barb, yeah, I mean, is Necro still a 10? With the bone armor and the walls and the pillars and yeah, they gotta be.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think AoE CC immunity is just not
Yeah. Yeah.
way to go past 10. Like you have to have 10 for that.
Yep. And then we got damage. I think this is going to be a pretty stable rating here. Although you said you might want to bump up Necro to like a 7 after seeing some of their set bonuses and stuff. Or
Yeah, so for PvE, they do some of the most absurd damage in the game because they can play around their summons. But for PvP, they don't do much damage because they're full support. You know, they're running bone armor, bone pillars, things like that. So maybe a 7 is fine as terms of like balancing both PvP and PvE for their damage stat.
yep. So do we bump up Satyr to 8 for damage? Because they can really
I would,
cycle through and
yeah, I would agree with that.
okay.
Yeah, I think they're fine at an 8. Yeah.
Other than that, it looks so between Monk and Barb, should Barb be 1 ahead than Monk on damage?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think Barb actually has a lot of damaging tools if you can really get on your target. And Monk is mainly for mobility and support and CC and all that stuff. So I think Barb outclasses Monk in terms of damage. Yeah.
Okay, and then do the weights look good? Should we adjust any of these down or up or
Necro, Satyr. Then we have Wizard, DH, Monk, Barb.
I meant on the right, the like the distribution,
Oh,
like the gray.
I see.
Yep, the weight.
Yeah. I would say solo. I mean, people are gonna crucify us for this, right? It's like like you can't take solo play away. It's so important. But the game is so focused on grouping up. I feel like solo is less important. And then when you're talking about like dungeons, they've actually become way more important because of set items. And so running a dungeon fast actually matters a whole lot to me. So maybe taking a couple of points from solo and then putting it into dungeons, because dungeons you're gonna want to run as a group because of that bonus chest for extra drop rate. So
Okay. And let's take this down to 14 so at least they're different and we'll make dungeons 16. How about something like that?
yeah, that seems a little bit better. And then after that, I think it's probably fine because I mean PvP is really the only like super skillful game mode outside of that, like maybe challenge drifts, but challenge drifts aren't incredibly important because we're kind of getting to that point where we don't need combat rating. So I would say, yeah, probably fine with the weights there.
That means that what are we at? So the new rankings, it's gonna be overall. The Necro is at 9.41. Oh, that's too big. Let me adjust this here. So 9.41. And then Crusader is going to be at 8.94. So they went up a lot. 8.94. Demon Hunter is at 7.71. They went down a little bit. And then Wizard, I'm sure, went up. Yeah, 7.94. They've been aging like fine wine. Monk,
Yeah.
7.36. And Barb at 7.01. Which means our new order is Necro at 1. And then Crusader still at 2. And we have a new number 3. Wizard coming in at number 3. And then number 4, Demon Hunter. Number 5, Monk. And Barb at number 6. How do you feel about that?
Pretty accurate, I would say. Again, I think that the biggest pieces of content in the game are PvE. If someone comes here and they're like, "Oh well, wizards are so good in PvP," that's yes, it's true, and I might even put them at number 1. But they're not as good as satyrs or necros in PvE content. So, yep, I like this list.
Okay, cool. There it is. Short and sweet. And again, that is over at diablopro.gg where you can find this tier list. And we always link to that down below in our videos. And we'll do our best to be releasing guides and keeping this stuff up to date for you. So, yeah, anything you want to say on the way out as we wrap up your build?
Well, I guess we have to just wait for Blizzard to fix these PvP bugs. Yes, I'm going to put this in every video until they do it.
There you go. There you go. Keep at it. So, all right. Thanks, Veil. Then I will link to Veiled's channel down below. He's cranking Diablo Immortal content out daily. So definitely check him out if you haven't subscribed over there already. And I will see you soon. Thanks for the time, Veiled.
See you later.